Brett, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, Brett Cotter. I know you came out a long way to see me, so I appreciate that. So you're an author, you're a founder of stressisgone.org.
Yeah.
All right. So
it's been a long journey. I got into stress relief about 20 years ago when I was in California, and you know me from my college days. So you could probably remember. Well, do you remember any of my stress back then, or what do you remember?
Oh, what I remember. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did have a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun. We played ball in Albany for a year, right? And then I just, at that time we were just, we're kids, so we just wild and having fun and doing our thing and partying and. But you're always, since we the same fraternity, so we became instant brothers, I guess you could say. So we had a really good relationship with that. But I didn't
lived in the same house too.
In the same house
for a little while, yeah.
Yeah. So I never. I mean, I saw the. I didn't view it as a stress. I thought we were just having a good time. So I don't know if we were dealing with a lot of things during college.
Well, do you remember that I would get into trouble every once in a while, or no?
Yeah, I do remember that.
So that's how my stress would come out. You know what I mean? It would be a quick anger, response. I had a very short fuse, especially after 1 or 2 or 20 or 30 beers, depending on. So to go to the source of my stress, there was like a lot of things when I was young. When I was very young. One thing I remember, I was riding my bike, and I got my first like real BMX bike. Must have been in like 6th grade, and I was riding in front of this police station in my neighborhood, and this older kid came over to me. He's like, "Give me the bike," and I'm like, "No way!" So I hold on to it, and the kid starts beating me profusely, and I'm literally 5 feet in front of the door going into the police station, right? So I'm like, "This is gonna be over in like a second. Cops are gonna come out." Minute goes by. Kid's pounding on me. Kid really wants my bike, and I'm just like taking this beating, holding onto the bike with my knees, with my hands, and cops never came out. And how do you think it ended?
You probably unleashed hell on them.
No. I held onto the bike, but the kid got tired.
Huh.
That's how it stopped.
Oh, wow.
The kid got tired from hitting me. Yeah, I wasn't gonna be able to beat the kid in a fight. I knew. Like if I could size somebody up quickly, and I kind of feel if I could win. As I got older, I would find ways to win.
You lived in a tough neighborhood, right? Where'd you grow up?
Well, it's funny. I grew up in Bayside Queens. For the most part, the neighborhood was really good, but we had a number of group homes that came into the neighborhood. So the first thing they wanted to do was beat up on the neighborhood kids. So we had to fight the kids that were coming in from Bronx, Brooklyn, the city, that the system didn't want to put in because they were like 16 or 17. And some of these kids were in for robbery, for, like things that we weren't doing. We were doing stupid stuff, but they were doing like a different level of stupid stuff, So we were the kids that they wanted to prove themselves, right? Because they're coming into our neighborhood, so we would have to fight these guys. So, and that was like a number of years. So that was like a coming of age, like a trial by fire thing, or a rite of passage, I guess.
Right.
I remember one time we were at this girl's Sweet 16 right in my neighborhood that we went to grade school with. I think I was a freshman in high school at this time. And she was at the School of the Performing Arts, FAME. Okay. It was in Spanish Harlem. Yeah. And like 150 kids from Spanish Harlem showed up to the party. And so it was me and like 7 of my friends. And everyone was over, people, were drinking. It was, it was a great party, but then there was a fight. One of my friends got into a fight with somebody that was at the party, and the whole party came outside. So now it's like me and like 6 of my friends and like 150 guys from Spanish Harlem. And the fight went 1-on-1, and then more people kept on coming out of the party. And then my friends started to leave. They wanted to get it because it was going to just be a slaughter. So some people started running. I was with them, and then I decided to stop, and I decided to walk back. So now we have like a whole block of kids coming after us on this main boulevard, on Bell Boulevard. And then I turn around and I start walking towards them. My friends are pissed off at me. They're like, I don't want to say what they were saying, but they were basically cursing at me like, don't do it, because they knew they couldn't lead me. We'd been through so much already,
right?
You know, but they knew this was just like ridiculous. It's like walking into a meat grinder, you know. But we walked back, we fought, and we all lived, you know, and that was like another rite of passage. So, and then stuff happened in high school. There was a couple of crazy fights in high school, like outsiders. Like
I would run away from that type of stuff, but you were running right into it.
Well, this is the thing. Remember, I told you about that kid when I was in front of the the police station. From that day forward, I said, "That's it. I'm never taking another beating like that. And if someone is in 3 feet of me and they have an attitude, I'm going to hit them first." So that's why a lot of fights in Albany happened, which probably didn't need to happen. Because if somebody was within 3 feet and they were looking at me weird, and I felt like some aggression towards them, I would just hit them all my might right in the chin. That's how insecure I was. So I was showing you that picture of when I was at Albany, and I was like 222 pounds, rock solid muscle. Got into a lot of fights. When I was my biggest is when I was my most fearful, deep inside of the world. You know, I felt I needed to be huge to feel safe. And that philosophy almost got me killed so many times.
Sure, yeah.
You know, I remember even when I was younger, before that experience with the bike, this is going back even further. So my father and mother divorced when I was 6. And then when he left the house, I don't know if you remember, like when you're a kid, to reach the sink in the bathroom, you had to pull over like a little stool. Do you remember that? All right, so I remember the little stool. It was a pink painted 2-step stool with hearts on either side, right? That was the one that my mom had in the bathroom. So I'd pull it over, and I would practice making a frown in the mirror, because I was like a happy kid, you know. But I practiced making a frown, so when I walked around town, I would look tough. And me and my brother look alike, and a lot of his friends' parents would say, which I heard from them when I was growing up, like, yeah, John looks exactly like Brett, only John smiles. You know what I mean? Right. So I would walk around town like with a frown on my face, because I wanted to seem tough, you know what I mean? To kind of like, because I was afraid, you know? So yeah, that was kind of like a little bit of a summary of, you know, how I grew up.
Right. Now, take me to this book that you wrote. I mean, I'm very fascinated about how someone goes about doing that. And now you wrote this book quite a while ago, right? I mean, this is going back years. Yeah. So what inspired? I mean, I think it's a good time right now. I don't know if anyone or people have seen the video that you put out, but I think that's going to explain quite a bit to people. Frank, can you play that? 1 minute, yeah, because I think that was a great job with the video as well.
Thank you.
So
there was a company, Beard and Bowler. They specialize in doing those kind of videos for nonprofits. Okay. And there's a company called Backpacks for Life, which I partnered with starting a few years back, where we give our tools and they put them in these backpacks, rucksacks, military rucksacks, and they give them to homeless veterans around the country, and to help them get through the winter and, you know, stuff like that. They have amazing stuff inside these backpacks. Right. So Backpacks for Life is an amazing nonprofit, and that's how we get our book out to homeless veterans that are on the street. Okay. And that little card I gave you. Yeah. And then the GoFundMe campaign is how we're getting the books to veterans in shelters that are homeless.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, you know, when I saw that video, it's really powerful. That's why I wanted to show it. Frank, are you ready? Yeah. All right. Can you play that?
I lost everything.
When you're in the Navy for a long time and you're away from the States in particular, it's a little disorienting.
It was just lonely, like a real lonely world that I was living in.
I tried crack, man. All the pain I went through in my life came right back to me.
People would want to understand, I would explain it, and they would say, that's not possible.
You try to talking to people about stuff you've seen and done. Nobody understood anything. So what's the point talking to you? You end up bottling everything up inside.
PTSD is a huge problem today because we just don't understand it. Post-traumatic stress disorder. It's our body's way of venting built-up trauma that we repress emotionally.
I read the book. It was simple. All I had to do was listen. That's it. That was the key.
The book's a simple 3-step process to deal with the symptoms of PTSD.
I was given the book prior to meeting Brett personally.
I wrote the book for my dad and people like my dad. He had PTSD most of his life, but he didn't realize it until he was in his 60s. And I said to him, Dad, how could I go around helping all these veterans if I'm not helping the one closest to me? I just want us to get a handle on your stress. And he said, okay, we'll do it. And it was a surreal moment for me because I wanted to help my father, and we were finally there. The very next day, he suffered a devastating stroke in the center of his brain. And I mourned his death for 6 months. And then I started writing.
It gave me hope. I could focus on my center, our family, our relationship, and communicate on a deeper level than just fear.
I got the help I needed.
Things fell into place.
It was like a huge benefit.
Every single person who's read it has benefited from it. All our veterans deserve it, and some really need it. I believe in this book because I know it works.
That's awesome.
Thanks. So if I could just talk about the guys in the video for a second here.
Sure.
Kyle, Kenny, and Nico. So Kyle, I met first. There was, after Hurricane Sandy, I was volunteering with a lot of people in like Rockaway and the Park Slope Brooklyn Armory, where there was like a lot of displaced people from senior citizen shelter, homes and stuff. And they were just like 400 people in beds in the Park Slope Armory. So I was volunteering there, helping do some stress relief. Then we moved down to Rockaway, where, it was really intense. And there was this woman, Kiki, that one of the volunteers met her there. And then the shooting happened at Sandy Hook. And she called me. And, I was thinking about going there, but she called me right away. She's like, look, one of my friends lives right there, and his wife is a teacher in the school district. So I ended up going, and that's where I met Kyle. So Kyle's a veteran, but his wife was a school teacher in the school district, and it was, just an insane, ultra tragedy. But the town, what happened in the town with like helicopters and news crews, and it was just totally insane for a pretty much cookie cutter kind of town. My wife went with me. She's an acupuncturist. She was doing treatments for people out there. So I just kind of like stayed in touch with Kyle. That weekend I was there, met him, his family, his kids, and did some work, but me and him always stayed, in contact. So he gave me a testimonial about the work. It's in the book. There's also a story from him that's in the book. And then when it was time to do the video, he was more than happy to help out. Kenny, I met next. I met him and his wife in a shelter in New Jersey. And then we did a group session with him and 2 other veterans through a friend of mine, Rebecca Miller. She connected me with that shelter. She does a great job with helping veterans get placed, in housing and stuff in New Jersey. Rebecca Miller Pringle is her name. I believe she's still with Keller Williams Worldwide. And then Nico was also referred through Rebecca, and he was a commando in the Royal Army. And at some point he was actually on the detail for the Queen, 17 years service. And, these guys, they risk everything. They do incredible things that, me as a civilian, it's difficult to even wrap my head around the risks that they go through for their everyday job when they're serving. And then the care and the pathway back into society is just really not there for a large portion of them. Some people that have great hospitals nearby and they're getting good care, but then there are other people that aren't getting the care. Either they're not connected to the right programs, or the right nonprofits to help advocate for them. And they're just not getting the care that they need. So that's the reason why I wrote the book. Well, let me back up. I was working on an app first. I was working on this app called PTSD Free. And my father was my tester, or he was supposed to be my tester, right? So my father has huge hands, you know. So I think he was having trouble with the, you know, testing the app. So I would be hounding him. I would call him, you know, and a couple like months go by, and then it just comes out. He's like, Brett, I'm just not an app guy, you know, because he was telling me he was busy and, you know, he hasn't had time and he couldn't get around to it. And finally, like I said, he just said he's not an app guy. And then I just said, you know, Dad, I really want to get a handle on your stress, you know, so what, you're not an app guy. You know, we'll do one-on-one sessions. You know, we could start this week. And he was like, you know, do you really want to pop the lid off this top? And I said, yeah, Dad, I do. And he always felt his demons were bigger than his will. He always, you know, he knew he had pretty big demons. Right. He had PTSD his whole life, but didn't find out about it until his mid-60s. He had a very tough life, you know, even before his service in Vietnam. Which definitely was very traumatizing, you know, for him. And then he was a New York City firefighter with Rescue 3 and Ladder 30. So,
were you close growing up with your father?
No. So, well, my earliest memories, he was completely my hero. He was a big guy. You know, at one point he was benching 500 pounds. He was my height, like most of the other men in my family. Hopefully my son will get taller than me. He's right there now. Right. So he was, you know, he was huge. And my earliest memories of him are working out with his workout partner, Frank, in our basement. And I would literally go down there and try and pick up the bar, and I couldn't. And then at one point I was able to pick up the bar. And so I was literally working out since I was like, you know, probably 4 with the bar. That's it, you know. And then I never stopped. You know, I was working out, and that's, you know, I might have stunted my growth, but, you know, I was always, it's just a part of my life, you know, since I was very young. And so then my parents got divorced. I was in 2nd grade, and I just totally checked out. I didn't do anything in school, in class. I was copying every test off of this kid, Danny Filippone, right? He sat next to me. He was an awesome guy, awesome kid. He would literally just like he knew I was cheating, but he would get done to stuff and he'd be like this. He would just look the other way. Right. And the last week of class, the teacher catches me, right? And she goes, how long has this been going on? And I'm just like, I didn't say anything. So then I had to repeat the whole 2nd grade. And that's where I met all my friends, which I'm still friends with. Okay. You know? So I got a great group of friends that still, you know, I talk to, you know, a lot.
So the divorce probably with your parents, that was tough on you.
All right. So that was beyond words tough. So there was a couple of things that made it even tougher. So my father had PTSD back then. The way he was dealing with it was partying. He would ride with the Hells Angels. He was in Harlem working at that time, fireman. And it was just a crazy time. It was mid-'80s. It was 70s and up to mid-'80s. Right. To work in the city at that time was a crazy time. Right. You know, a lot of firemen went through that, where the family relationships were strained. You know, right. And I know a lot of my father's friends from that time. You know, I love them. You know, right. It's like reconnecting with him when I, you know, talk to these guys. Right. And a lot of them lived through that. And some families survived, some didn't. You know. Right. Because, like, you know, we were talking about our college experience, like it was so much fun. Right. But in the wake of the fun, sometimes you hurt people. Right. Right. And that's kind of like the same kind of fun hurricane that these guys had in Harlem, being a firefighter back then. And they would all tell you it was the best job in the world. You know, they loved it, the brotherhood. And that's why, that's one of the things we loved about being in college together. Right. You know, you were saying we were brothers since we first met. You know, it was like that brotherhood, that connectedness, you know. Right. But it's a brotherhood by choice. You know, you choose to be there, which makes it even, you know, more unique. So getting back to that, so my father was dealing with so much PTSD. from that. He was just partying. A lot of guys turned to drugs and alcohol, so he was doing that. My mother kicked him out, righteously so. She needed to do that because it would have just, having that in our household would have made me and my brother just had negative effects on us, right? And we were already crazy. So imagine how worse it would have been. Right. So she did the right thing. She did what she needed to do. She worked 4 jobs to keep us in the house that we had. But my father, the problem that I had right after the divorce was he was having trouble showing up. So he would call me, even on birthdays, and be like, I'm leaving, I'll be there, in 10 minutes, and he wouldn't show. So I would end up sitting on my front stoop for hours and hours as a little kid crying. And then my mother would come out and I would hide my tears, right. And she'd be like, Brett, I know you're crying. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. I wasn't. Right. I'm just waiting for him. Right. So as an adult, I asked him, I said, why wouldn't you called, why wouldn't you just come? Right. And he said, Brett, I was right down the corner. I couldn't turn. Yeah. I couldn't turn the corner. It was too painful for him because he had such a buildup of PTSD and trauma in his heart to turn the corner and face his failure within his own family. Right. Right? It was too much to face for him. Right. So he just kept on going to the next party, to the next bar. But that's the best he had. That's what his pain was. Right.
So now, dealing with all that and then getting to, you started Stress Is Gone before you wrote the book, or was it the same before?
Yeah. So I got into holistic healing and meditation in 1999. Okay. And that completely changed my life forever. Transcendental meditation was my first step in, my first dipping my feet in the water. Okay. Then I found this healer that helped me heal. I don't know if you remember this, but I was actually very jealous when I was in college. I got into a lot of fights because I was a jealous boyfriend. I had a girlfriend for 3 years, but we got into a lot of fights because I was jealous between the two of us, and then I got into a lot of fights with other guys because I was jealous, right? So jealousy was something that was a big problem with me, and it also was a problem of my dad's. So I go to this healer. I drive from California to Arizona, Sedona, with my girlfriend at the time, and I go in, I'm talking to this guy, and all of a sudden the memories come up when I was 4 years old, seeing my father and mother argue. It was like I was watching it on a movie screen. It was amazing. And he explained it as the memories were bubbling up, the visions and memories were bubbling up from my cellular memory. Okay, when something gets locked inside your unconscious mind because it's too painful to process, those memories and the emotions get logged inside your body in cellular memory. So he was a channel of the Holy Spirit. That's where it's going to get a little hokey and esoteric, right? So he used the energy of the Holy Spirit to unlock and release the memories from my cells to come up to my conscious mind, and I would see the memories. So I was actually seeing my dad and my mom fight when I was 4 years old, and he was doing all the same things I did. The holding of his fists, right? When you're mad, even if you're talking, you do that. The grinding of his teeth while they were fighting. And my mother was fighting with him the way my girlfriends used to fight with me, right? Oh, that's wow. Yelling. Yeah. It was the pattern was the same. I was living out the same pattern of what I learned as a 4-year-old boy. And I remember when the memory bubbled up, I had my hands on the carpet watching in the memory, but I could feel and see the same color of the carpet. It was so real as the memory bubbled up, So that raised awareness as to where my jealousy stemmed from. And then in the session lasted about an hour and a half. And then in the session, we replaced the space where the memory was with unconditional self-love. And that changed my behaviors in the real world regarding jealousy and how I related to women.
Well, how do you replace it with what?
Unconditional self-love. No, your own divine essence. Okay. Right. So this was, he was a very gifted, healer, this guy. He traveled the world. It was crazy. So he actually worked with people studying ninjas in Europe because they found him because they wanted him to unblock all the tension in their heart. Ninjas believe if you have tension free in your heart, if your heart's open, right, then you'll be better at your job. right? So there's no fear in your body. So they wanted to get rid of all the fear in their body, mostly in their heart, so they could move more freely. And that's what he got me on the path of doing for myself, was taking the different parts in my heart, the anger, the jealousy, and starting to unwind it, releasing it, unlocking it, and calling in what I wanted in it, which is my own birthright, which is my own divine essence, right? The energy that is innately me, not my experiences on earth after I was born. Right. So yeah, and then I learned from a Shaolin grandmaster, a 35th generation grandmaster from China. I took 2 levels of training with him, and that was mind blowing. And that was amazing. And then I learned from another woman that did a different type of healing modality. It was more through the third eye. We were talking about some of the stuff from Egypt. It was more through the third eye, the diagnostic, going in and kind of seeing through the body and scanning. And then, and then after that, after learning from those 3 and a few other teachers, then I created my own healing technique, which is not in that book. That is a basic stress manual. It's an awesome book. It's a manual on how to process and let go of all your stress.
Yeah, I read it actually last night through its entirety, so I felt it's a good read. It's a good read. And
Thank
a
you.
lot of good, insightful information in there.
Thank you.
Now you, the driving force of writing this book was for your dad, correct?
Yeah, the book was. So the app, let's go back to the story about the app.
Sure.
So I wanted him to test it. He didn't want to. He just was having trouble testing the app. We were talking late one night. I was walking into a pub near my house where I live up in Rockland. And we talked right before I walked in. And we just made an agreement. Okay, we're going to start to do phone sessions, 20 minutes once a week. We'll get a handle on his stress to reduce his overall stress level. And the very next day is when he had a bleeding stroke in the center of his brain. And one of the neuro doctors explained it to me as if it was like a nuclear bomb going off in Manhattan. Like it was the worst place, in the center of his brain to have a bleeding stroke. Because when that happens, blood starts to pool, and then it's pushing your brain around because your brain's not meant to have that new liquid volume expanding. So it's causing brain damage. Every time your heart beats, it's causing brain damage, by moving your brain around. So 9 days later, he passed away. And then 11 days later, he was, we buried him. So I mourned his death for 6 months. I really wanted to give myself time to heal. I had very old tears to process. I was driving with my mom down the Palisades Parkway before he passed. He was in hospice at Mount Sinai in the city now. And it was in the fall, and we're driving down the Palisades, and the leaves are blowing. And it was almost like we were in like a snow globe. The leaves are blowing. She's driving me because I was upset. And it was just one of those experiences, like the Landslide came on by Stevie Nicks, the acoustic version, and I was just bawling. And my mom said, "Brett, these are very old tears." Because she knew when I was on the stoop, I still had tears from back then from losing my dad the first time. So I really wanted to give myself time to process. 6 months. One of the things I did, which is in the book, it's towards the end of the book, in the meditation section, where if you lose a loved one, now I figured, like, I lost my dad. It's really deep, raw pain in my heart. I'd be waking up in the morning bawling, like waking up with deep soul sadness, and going to sleep the same way at times. And I'm like, okay, well, now's the time for me to figure some of this out. What can I do to experiment on myself to see what works, to help and share with people? Given my background since 1999, being involved in this. So I came up with the mantra of I'm okay here and he's okay there. So when you lose a loved one, if it's like the person's name is Ann or Bob or whatever, you'd say, I'm okay here and Ann's okay there. So you touch the tension, just like the technique in the card. You start breathing deep and slow. And you embrace the sadness with your breath, right? You're breathing into the sadness. You're touching the tension with your hand. And then instead of saying, I'm okay, like the card says, you say, I'm okay here. And I was saying, he's okay there. I'm okay here. Dad's okay there. And after a while, I would say about after 15 minutes, my heart would feel calm again. But it would bring up tears. You know, it's kind of like you're reframing the relationship. Instead of just going, oh my God, I lost them, you know, that's it, I'm never going to see them again. It's, I'm okay here. So it's satisfying your cell's own worry about now this pillar in your life is gone. What's going to happen to me? That satisfies that. But it also satisfies that subconscious worry about what's going on with them. Is there an afterlife? Are they in hell? Are they in heaven? Is there just blackness? Right. Are they in their coffin? Like, where are they? You know what I mean? Right. Like, so it's saying, I'm okay here. They're okay there. So that reframed the relationship with my father in my heart and also in my mind. And what I feel had happened was it created a spiritual connection, which I feel very deeply spiritually connected to him. You know, he's come to me in, I think, 21 dreams at this point. So ever since the first dream I had with him, I started making like a little dream journal, you know, with every time he comes to me in dreams. So it's up to like 21. And another thing that helped when he first went home, right, when he first passed away from Earth, was I would say when I go to sleep, thank you, universe, for having him come in my dreams tonight. So I'd be thanking the universe for something I wanted, and then the universe had to catch up with me, right? Had to catch up with what I said. So it would be like 80% of the time where I was saying that, he would come in the dream either that night or the next night, you know? And then I would say it by name. I'd say, thank you, universe, for allowing John Cotter Jr. To come into my dreams. I want to talk to him.
Wow.
You know? So in the beginning, when I saw him in my dreams, I would just hug him and be crying.
Right.
You
now,
know?
were you getting now from these, you know, visions of seeing him in your dreams? Were you putting together and you're writing stuff down in your journal? Were you collecting? Were you writing the book at this point, or you were kind of?
Okay, going back to the book. I get sidetracked.
I'm trying to get
sidetracked.
Okay, so no, that's good. I'm trying to figure out how you put pen to paper and started writing out.
So 6 months after he passed, is in the video. That's when I started writing the book, and I wrote the book for him. It's dedicated to him, but also for people like him. Okay. Some people might not be too technically savvy to use an app, but pretty much anyone could just grab a book and read it.
Right.
You know. Anyone could just write in it. So there's a year of exercises in that book.
Did you write anything prior to this? This was just kind of like in terms of any. You said you didn't do great in school and you cheated off one of your friends. So how'd you get good at writing?
So I had a coach, Douglas Cooper, showed me like what a book, like what a skeleton looks like of a book. What a skeleton of a chapter looks like.
Right.
What the first 5 pages of a book, like when you turn it open. Right. Like the dedication page, where that comes, like and then he actually did all of the citing at the end, which I was like, I
so you sort of helped, but this is what you were going to do for your dad, and and this was,
and also the structure of a sentence,
right?
Like where certain things goes, like where certain things goes. You can see how I speak, right?
right.
So that's how I was writing. So he was helping me really clean it up.
Okay.
So all the concepts were mine, but he was helping me express it in a way that was really clear. And that's one thing that I'm really grateful for his help, is that the book is really simple and clear.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it. Definitely.
You know?
Definitely with that. And how long did it take you to, you know, from start to finish?
I would say about 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, about 6 months. Because I was writing, I outlined a number of books before this. I always knew I was meant to write a book.
Right.
But life always got in the way. And this was like the boot in the ass I needed to actually start it, get into it, and finish it.
Right.
You know, a lot of people can start things, people can maintain things, not a lot of people can finish.
Right.
So this was like the thing that I was really got on a race with. I'm like, I really want to, you know, bang this out.
Right.
You know.
And now you have it. What's the mission now, or the purpose, is to give these out to as many people who need it or could get use out of it?
Yeah. So my goal, what I would love, is that every veteran in our country, and there's a lot, you know, there's around 22 million, have access to the book. right? Not that they have to read it, but I just want them to have it so that if they need it, it's there.
Right.
You know, not everybody needs it, but you know, even a person like yourself, myself, if I read that, you know, and you could just share what you thought of it, there's some useful information on like how to handle stress in there, regardless of if you're a veteran, a civilian, anybody. If you're alive in a human body, you have stress.
Right.
And this is really how to handle it. You know, the first key is so important, to learn how to stop a stress reaction.
Right.
So right there, you know, some people are sitting there stressed for hours. You know, they could have stopped it in a minute and then calm their emotions.
What I got out of it too is when you put in some stats in here in terms of the actual statistics on how the stress could actually impact all, you know, your inner working of the body and lead to disease and death. So that, to me, when I saw that, I'm like, all right, I got to get a handle on any type of stress that comes my way. So how do you do it, right? The breathing technique is like that. That's what I got out of it, right? How to really do that, you know, and kind of practice that stuff. So walk me through that. I want to see, like, you have this card here. There's 3 steps, right? Touch the tension. So the tension can be, where's the tension? I mean, when the stress stopper.
So
let's walk through an exercise.
So let's say you realize you're stressed. For me, 99% of the time, I'm feeling tension in my chest.
Right.
You know, it's in my heart. But it depends on what the stressor is.
I usually get it in, I think it's usually more in my head when I get upset. I think I feel like that's, I don't know if it's...
yeah, a lot of people get it in their head. Yeah.
Okay,
some people get it in their solar plexus. Some people feel it in the stomach. It depends on what the stressor is, right? Some people that are in a relationship where they're keeping a lot in and they're not expressing themselves, right? Or empowering themselves in the relationship, they're keeping it down. Whenever you tend to keep a lot down, usually you tend to get ulcers in your stomach and you're actually pushing things down. So some people, depending on the stress type, might have tension in their stomach, you know? But for me, it's my heart, and I'm pretty much going to my chest. So I use my hand, touch my chest, and then I'll start breathing deep and slow. And then once per breath, I'll silently say, I'm okay. So that's once per breath. A lot of times people will do affirmations and they'll be like, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. And that's actually more stressful because of the pace, you know?
Okay.
So no matter how much chaos is going on in your mind and the thoughts are racing, as long as you're breathing deep and slow, you're touching the tension. The calm cells in your hand are touching the tense cells in your body, right? And you're saying it once per breath, I'm okay. So you're breathing deep and slow. I'm okay. You're saying that mentally at that pace. And it's sometimes just like a gentle whisper, right? That is like throwing a huge monkey wrench into your stress reaction, right? When you get stressed, your body's worried about surviving. And the program, the logic is I must run or fight to stay alive. When that logic hears I'm okay over and over again, and you're embracing the tension with your breath, it obliterates the stress, usually within a minute. The cool thing is after practicing it a couple of months, you'll start to feel the stress happen in your body. Your cells are really smart before the trigger walks in the door, right? So if you work in a large company, in an office, you might feel like, oh, my stress is starting to trigger. And all of a sudden, someone that triggers you walks in the door. Your body senses what's happening before your eyes see it, right? But you got to get in touch with your body to be able to receive that information. You know, some of us are numbed out. So this process also helps us get in touch with our body to embrace the tension with our breath. And that's a really important, you know, part to all this as well, getting in touch with our body.
Do you do a lot of work with corporations using this technique and stuff? You do?
Yeah. So my first corporate class was in 2005 in a Fortune 500 company. And that was amazing. I typically do 3 different types. So it's either a half hour, 45 minutes, or 1 hour. And it could either be a straight meditation class, which is fine, or I do the Stress is Gone method, which involves music and movement, which involves 12 kind of like exercise type of movements that release all the tension from the body. Then we do an assessment to see where our stress is coming from. Then I guide them through an expression exercise where they're getting stuff off their chest. And then we end up on a 20-minute meditation where we actually reprogram how we are responding to our most routine stressor in life. So some people, their stressor is finance, some's their spouse, some's their job, some's their coworker, some's their boss, some's their commute. So everyone's unique. But whatever the stressor is in that final meditation, we embrace the stress, we envision that stressor, the most routine one, And then we're breathing into the tension. We're unlocking and releasing the tension. And then with a clear mind, we're showing a new way to respond to that stressor, right? So when I was in California, working, my commute was on the 405, which was like the worst traffic in the world. After a while, I would start to hear the horns as a symphony. And then I would start to laugh because it was funny. Every time it really sounded like a symphony, I was like, this is hilarious. So it's like, you know, all perception, how you're seeing things. You know, so when you change your perception, when you're stressed, it goes down to really tight tunnel vision. So if you open it wide, it's like a breath of fresh air. And the stress releases just from your opening of your perception. There was a teacher that once said, try to view all your problems through the lens of eternity.
Right. They're probably not problems at all, right? They're
Yeah.
small.
So it just literally would be like dust and it's gone. The wind just took it. You know what I mean? So it's like, try to perceive that, or try to view the big things that you're doing or have to do as little things.
I like that.
You know, it just changes your view and your approach, and having more of an open mind, a wider lens of perception.
Right. Well, I think it's great. I think the book is great. What you're doing is amazing, helping vets. And, you know, are there any, you know, I mentioned, you know, you did this for corporate companies as well. I think every company should bring in some tools and techniques to help their stress. And, you know, I think that'd be hugely beneficial for anyone, right? If you're dealing with stuff. I mean, because, you know, working and life and getting to work and the commute and just everything you have to deal with, it's definitely all stressful. You know, it's all usually, and then you bring in that into the workforce. It'd be great if the companies all adopt like having some like responsibility for, you know, people's welfare. And I think more companies should like adopt that stuff. Are there organizations that are really out there that you know of that are really pushing for this, you know, stuff?
Yeah, I think workplace wellness has been on the rise over the last 10 years for sure. Right. Hopefully we see more and more companies taking it to the next level. The data shows that it was like 7-to-1 return on investment with money they put in for good corporate wellness programs, with employee morale, with absenteeism. Absenteeism is a huge cut into the pocket of corporate America. Right. Long-term medical leave, things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits I could see from that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now this, and also helping vets. You know, I think you talked about it earlier. When they come back, we're not, you know, there's more we could do, right, in terms of helping them kind of get it assimilated back into like the workforce and figuring things out. Because it is. I mean, I can't just imagine. I know in the book you talked about some of your dad's things that he was into, and I know he was a machine gun operator. Is that right? I can't just. I was trying to. I was visualizing myself if in that type of position, like in war, being able, you know, that it's in itself just imagining that, you know, and doing that type of stuff. What kind of trauma? Because that's not something.
So he was 18. He enlisted when he was 18 because him and his friends, they realized they were going to get drafted. Right. So he enlisted when he was 18. And, you know, some of the pictures, he looked so young, you know, and me and my brother were playing like Tecmo Bowl one day in our room. And I was 20 and he was 18. I'm like, John, Dad was in Vietnam having to kill people and seeing people blown up in front of him when he was our age. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. How do you even deal with that?
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
you know? And then it was.
Did he talk about it to you when he came home?
No, my brother, he talked to my brother once about Vietnam in a car. And I was like, John, what happened? My brother was young. Because my brother asked him. We never really asked him when we were young, but my brother asked him. I think my brother was like in 5th grade or something. And then he got dropped off and he told me, like, I asked Dad about Vietnam. And I was like, so what happened? He's like, he started crying, you know, and they were in a car ride. They were on the Grand Central Parkway. And he said a guy next to him in a car rolled down his window and said, you were right. And then my father said, we're okay. We were peeling onions. But if you think about peeling back the onion, this just popped into my head. Literally, when guys are talking about their experience, it's like they're peeling back layers of such a raw onion
Right.
You know, and we don't have the tools to deal with that. And that's really why I wrote that second key, you know, how to process the trauma, how to process the traumatic memories.
Yeah. You also mentioned getting a team around you, like getting people you could talk to. Because, again, being a guy, you know, I'm not, you know, getting in touch with your feelings and emotions is sometimes hard to get out there and who to talk to about that, right? Because you want to be manly and kind of hold it all in. And I'm sure a lot of vets, too, being like out there in the front lines and doing these things, coming home, who do they talk to about it, right? Because no one could really relate unless you're in it. And then, you know, guys in general don't, you know, for the most part, don't show their emotions a lot of times anyway.
So there's so many complexities around this, way beyond just like the whole macho thing. You know, that's like stuff that me and you would have. But then you have guys that seen things that will never, like there was one point, my father's friend told me that he was a fireman in Harlem, because they shared, and there was a group of Marines that were actually firemen as well, that they would get together and talk together, you know, and be honest with each other and share things. And my father, I'm not sure if it was Quezon or Da Nang, but he was in a foxhole, and literally all he saw was body parts flying out all around him. You know, and I think he was in there for like maybe 24 or 36 hours, and literally was just getting bombarded. They were on like lower ground in a hill. And every time he put his head up, there was just body parts flying everywhere. So it's like, you know, who are you going to talk to fix that, to help him with that? So then it's like, okay, let's say you talk to a social worker, right? How are they going to process that information? There's no way. They're not equipped to hear that and then give you back something verbally that's going to help you process that, right? So there's that. There's the complexity of civilians have no idea what the hell these men and women have been through and what they've seen and what they heard, and what's happened to them, right? So the other complexity is if they're still on the job, right? If they're still active duty, it's tough, because if they show weakness, that they're dealing with some stress, then they might not get deployed again. And these guys are living for the action. You know, that's it. That's what they do. Right. You know, they're like freaking heroes, you know, like, you know, like action people in action movies, they live for the action. That's their job. So when they don't get deployed, that's like taking a football player off the field.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, so the openness to talk, you know, their superiors about that, it's kind of like a little bit taboo. That's also why I did the app in the book, because I felt that veterans, given any tool, my father proved this to me many, many times, given the right tool, they could do anything. Right. And he was just that kind of guy. He was a master mechanic, electrician, plumber, carpenter, everything. He could do anything with his hands. Right. His well broke upstate, and I think it was like 175 foot, you know, the well down. I don't even know how the hell he fixed that. You know, it's like there's stuff that he built. His buddy had a restaurant in the city. The fridge broke. It was a big walk-in fridge. They were going to lose the whole place. He built from scratch a walk-in freezer that was still there. He told me the story in like 2012, and it was still there for like 30 years. Right. You know, so like he, you know, so he could do anything with his hands. So I'm like, you know what? I was conflicted to put out that chapter on this is how you process traumatic memories, because it's dangerous. These memories are coming up on the surface. It's going to trigger visceral reactions. But that's where they need the most help with. You know what I mean? So I'm like, screw it. I'm putting the book out. I'm putting it in the book. I'm going to give them the tools. It's the best tools that I know will work. And I know that it works, because it worked on me. I'm a guinea pig on it. And then it worked on everyone I've done it with. And then what you brought up about the support team, before they get into that, they got to fill out that sheet. You know, the names and phone numbers of friends, family, loved ones, people they trust. They have to have their team around them. This is not a one-man mission, you know, so that they could call people if they need to talk and reach out, you know, immediately. And then I believe I even say in the book, let them know what you're doing. Let them know about the book. Let them know what's going on.
Yeah, it's great. Now you're delivering these books on the weekend. I don't know if you have a whole shipment of boxes that you got right now. What's you're doing that on the
So
on
thanks for bringing that up. So we started a GoFundMe campaign a month ago. And
there's the bunch of boxes that
on Veterans Day. So I already delivered 180 books to veterans. That was about 2 weeks ago. right before the snow came. And then we just recently got 500 books in. So
That's
my
awesome.
goal is to get the book to every homeless veteran in New Jersey in a shelter. And that's what that GoFundMe is about. What I really would love is for corporate sponsors, large and small, to step up to make $500 donations so that they could start sponsoring states. Some states don't have that many homeless veterans in shelters. You know, you could cover a smaller state that doesn't have that many for, you know, $500 or $1,500. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
You know, would a company want to put their name on that?
Sure.
I'm getting this PTSD manual that's going to help these men and women, right, release and process and let go of the traumas that led to them being homeless.
Right.
You know, those companies could put their names on that. So if any companies are listening to us now, I really encourage to go on the GoFundMe page, look up Stress Is Gone. It says help homeless veterans, and make a corporate donation. You know, we'll be a corporate sponsor. We'll have your logo on our website and on the GoFundMe. And it would be something that I would promote in all the podcasts and interviews I'm doing.
Right.
Be glad to promote. But we really would love some corporate sponsorship to step up and help us, you know.
Right.
I'm willing to get the book printed, deliver it, and also do follow-up classes at any of the shelters that want me there, you know, to help integrate the tools.
Oh,
you
that's
know.
awesome.
So that, thank you again for bringing up, you know, the GoFundMe.
Yeah.
I think in another 2 weeks we'll be done with Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And I'm hoping to hit our goal, the financial end of the goal, by Christmas. So that would be a, you know, really great Christmas gift to finish up that. That was our first campaign.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Great. Now, that's amazing. I think, yeah, please help if you can. I mean, this is the book. I think we have a picture of it somewhere, but this is the book where you could pick up. It's, I said I read it, and you know, I went through it pretty easily. It took me like about a half hour or so to get through it.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of good tips, even for, you know, just dealing with, like I said, just day-to-day things and stress. It's definitely some good tips in there. But let's get it out into the hands of everyone we can. You know, why not? You
Absolutely.
know? It's awesome. We really appreciate you coming down, man. I think,
Yeah.
you know, this stuff. Your story is great. Like I said, I love the whole mission that you're on, and I appreciate you and coming down here to share your story. It means a lot to me, and hopefully we could do some good work with this. You know,
Awesome.
get it into the right hands. And
really grateful for having, you know, having me come down.
yeah, man, I appreciate
That was
it.
really awesome, Mike. Thank you.
Cool, man. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's see. All right, thanks, man.
Thanks again.
All right, buddy.
All right.